back to Stillwater. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I think anytime, there's a couple things. It's their second year in a row for these players to play in postseason, so many of them have that familiarity, which I think anytime you've done something, the second time around it feels more comfortable. And the fact that we're going back to the same place, we know exactly how their facility's set up. I mean, even our outfielders were talking about the kind of ribbing they're going to get from their fans. They're more prepared for the kind of language that's going to be used and that kind of stuff. So they're, you have that under your belt. We know how their turf plays. We know how their field plays. So I think there's a lot of things that just make it more comfortable. Last year at this time, this team, deservedly so, hadn't been in regionals in a bit, and first time for those players, and they were so excited. And it was like regionals was just a part of the excitement. This year it was a little more of a business approach, and I think it's been well documented that we struggled a bit at the end of the year, but I will say this, and I don't think this has gotten enough attention in today's collegiate game, the fact that we've had to play all but 3 weekends of our season with 2 pitchers. Nobody's doing that. They get to this time of season, they might ride 2 pitchers, but nobody's doing that. I don't know if anybody in the postseason field has had to ride 2 pitchers the entire season. And I think with that, there's so many things that go into that. Not only the wear and tear mentally and physically on your pitchers, but also the preparation when we face opponents and we play them 3 times and they're not having to prepare for 5, having to prepare for 2. It's a really different prep. And so I think that the fact that we've been really competitive and we're in. There's 242 teams that aren't practicing today. And I think, let's make the narrative something positive. Like, we're going to regionals, and I think it's exciting.
Did you guys do anything Sunday for the selection show?
We had a quiet gathering. We did have ESPN, they wanted our reaction, but we had a quiet gathering because we didn't know. We didn't know, and it was well documented that we were probably one of the last 4 in the at-larges, and that's okay. We got a spot. A spot's a spot.
You talked about riding, 2 pitchers. Do you feel like that kind of done a little bit like, Courtney's been here before, you guys feeling confident, with her where she's at heading into regionals?
Absolutely. I just, there's over 200 innings on her arm. I can't tell you, the last time I think we put 200 innings on somebody's arm was in 2013 when we rode Tatum Edwards all the way to the College World Series, right? I think she had 241 innings that year. And I told Court when KK went down, I said, you're probably going to have to eclipse the 200 inning mark. And I think the most she's ever thrown before is like 120. I mean, so it's a really different workload.
What's the difference now? I think we saw Court well rested in that first game of the conference tournament. You think having rest on her now this week?
Yeah, she didn't even throw today. So she threw a bullpen yesterday, and we're in finals, which that's been kind of tricky too. So she did her hardest bullpen of the week yesterday. We rested her today. She'll turn it over tomorrow, and then hopefully she's be fresh and she feels fresh.
How do you prepare for a regional when you've got 3 potential opponents? How do you balance that and prepare for that?
Well, the good news here, we've played 2 of them. 2, not just 1 game, but 2 games. And so we've seen different pitchers. We've seen 3 pitchers from Wichita State. We've seen 2 pitchers from Oklahoma State. And so we just don't know a whole lot about UMBC, and there's not a lot out there. So working to try to gain some information about them. But it's a challenge. It's a different kind of challenge than a 3-game series against the same team. But honestly, with us having 2 pitchers, I like the fact that it's a different team the next day.
Does this feel a little different than last year? Obviously, last year kind of dominated your way to regionals. This year, like you said, kind of waiting up until that last minute. Does that kind of give a different edge for this team?
Well, what's interesting is if you think about last year, we won the tournament, so we knew we were in. But if you think about our last 3 weekends leading up to the tournament, we dropped a series to Wisconsin, we dropped a series to Ohio State, we lost Friday night against Indiana, and then we came out and we won the same 2. So there's some similarities. Where it differs is what happened at the tournament. And so we kind of had to pick ourselves up last year. What happened, we had that 18-game win streak in the middle. And that's what people remember, and that's great. But then we sort of limped a little bit there. And I think that's just the evolution of a 55-game season.
Let's talk like the Big Ten in general, right?
Yeah.
We saw Penn State was one of the first 4 out.
Yeah.
Is it disappointing to only get 4 teams in from the conference this year?
It is, but I try to put a positive spin on everything. We had 8 teams in the top 50 in the RPI, so we're knocking at the door. We're really close, and so last year we got 7 in, but maybe how the automatics worked out, it was different. I don't know, but I know that we're close. I know one of the things that I've talked to some of the coaches about, I think we're scheduling well. We need to win a few more in the early part of the season. And the challenge for us in the early part of the season is a lot of times we're going and facing and playing teams that have been outside practicing, and we're just now outside. And so, it's really different seeing a ball in the sky in February than it is right now. We're used to it now, or even on dirt. And so sometimes it's hard to know exactly how much that impacts, but it does have some sort of impact. We go head to head with our pitchers all winter long, but it's indoors, not outdoors. So just that kind of stuff. But I think that's what we need to do. I'm really proud of our group. We just need to win a little bit more early, and so then instead of that 47 RPI, now maybe it's a 37. I think we ended up 38, and that's probably what got us in.
The lineup struggling a little bit in the Big Ten tournament. Is there anything you can attribute that to or put your finger on?
Well, I tell you what, we're working on it, and there's no stone that's not going unturned in practice. So that's really our goal is to try to break out. But sometimes it's almost like the more attention you put on it, the more you press. And so it's this delicate balance of, push and pull and just trying to free people up. And that's what we just did out here at the end of practice. We actually did a little competition where they hit a line drive, they actually get a +1, an extra rep, or if they pop it up, they get a minus. So, just try to vary it and go from there.
How do you envision using Courtney and Sarah this weekend? I think we can assume Courtney is going game 1, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's got to be all hands on deck, and that's kind of how we approached the Big Ten tournament. Like when Courtney came out against Illinois, she was just very dominating. She threw a beautiful game. We were ready to use Sarah if we needed to, and then you saw against Northwestern, Sarah went in pretty early. So it's just like this.
And obviously, it's not too far of a drive. Husker Nation usually travels pretty well. Any message to the fans before you guys head out to Stillwater?
Well, I tell you what, Stillwater, that environment, it's really tight, and they build their party deck. So we need you to be loud when you come down, because I guarantee you they've been partying, and that usually makes the volume go up. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Rhonda.